choice, Xerxes. I sow the seeds of suspicion in the new world with your soul!
And now, the objective is complete. That is all.
Hey guys, MrPokke here, and this is going to be my Quadra Anaxa Zero Cycle video. Honestly, it didn't really take that long because I think that with proper speed tuning alongside with his placement in D Herta as well as Tribi, it can be very achievable. I also ran a couple of tests with Hypercarry Anaxa, so the following footage is essentially me capturing 4 of my runs. Yeah, so this is going to be for the first half and second half of Memory of Chaos. So one team I did with a Hypercarry Anaxa, and then the other team I did it with essentially an Anaxa plus D Herta as well as the RMC. Right now, compared to the Castrius Zero Cycles, I would say this is a little bit more straightforward because one of the concerns I have with Castrius, especially for people that want to do Zero Cycles, is that she doesn't have the ability to run a sustainless run, so they're basically almost tied together. Whereas for Hypercarry teams such as Anaxa, such as D Herta, you can run a sustainless pretty comfortably, especially since we can make use of Anaxa's ultimate to essentially cut in between the actions for an enemy unit. Specifically, this is for the Kafka stage where you can deny the mind control completely, which makes your life very straightforward. I'm gonna show you guys basically the runs, one without cutting and one with cutting Kafka. I would say that both are gonna be very doable, but I'll save that a little bit later. So let's just jump first into the Zero Cycles we have gotten for Flame Reaver. Yep, so this is going to be the Flame Reaver run. You can see that one of the concerns I have with Flame Reaver is your sustains, or rather the entire team, they basically need to survive the hits from Flame Reaver in the second phase, and you can only essentially do this consistently without letting the flame out of space hit you after this charge. So you can see over here, these two, they're always going to hit first, but you cannot let them hit your team for the big booms, right? Because if they do hit you, you're going to get inflicted with a lot of burns and you take substantial damage. So you do want to essentially try to either freeze them or you just get them out of the battlefield as fast as possible before that actually begins, right? And one very important thing to know is I always use my Mimi over here to pull up my Tribi instead of my D Herta, because she's gonna be 2 action value away, which means it's going to be a waste. So pulling up my Tribi, not only does it not waste any of Herta's action value, Tribi herself also gains the true damage buff from Mimi, which you can then transfer into the enemies. So every single one of a follow-up attack, every single one of her base and ultimate is gonna do substantially more damage, right? So afterwards, D Herta is just gonna essentially go for it, doing the normal things. You're gonna be a little bit out of energy over here, right? It's gonna be completely normal because after you cast another hit from any other unit, you are going to be getting enough to cast the Herta's ultimate over here, right? So this is completely fine. At this current juncture, you essentially want to try to make it so that the flame out of space don't hit you at all. So this is very easily done by basically just landing all of the follow-up attacks, all the hits from Tribi, all the basic attacks from RMC. So at this point, you just want to do a little more toughness bar. And over here, you basically want to make sure that these 2 guys, they are basically gone. Now, one thing I've noticed that if I were to do this, because the health of your entire team is way more important than damage, you are actually gonna instantly kill all of them, right? So I've noticed that by doing this, you essentially wasted, you can see over here, you essentially wasted an Anaxa action as well as a Mimi action. But luckily for us, these two, whether or not they have the action, is not the end of the world because Anaxa is already at full energy and we do have 4 skill points, and Mimi, we basically lose a little bit of the charge, which in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter to us that much, right? So you can see, we are going to be beginning the Flame Reaver phase 1. Let him summon all of his clones first, and then you activate Anaxa's ultimate, cast him into the sublimation state, and then her Tribi is going to do a follow-up, and afterwards, at this current point, you do not want to skill, you always want to maintain that your charge is as close to 100% as possible so that there's no wasted action value for DR. This is very important. So this is going to be a 94%, and you can see over here, and Anaxa himself actually provides a substantial amount of charge for Mimi because it does constitute as 2 different skills, right? So you can see 99%, just nice. We are going to be gaining the extra turn for Mimi right over here, and DR is going to get a true damage buff. So now we can basically outskill everything. I'm going to do a little bit of a tribute ultimate, just basically take out the clones to generate a little bit more energy. Unfortunately, the final clone didn't die, so he has like 1 stack of damage reduction, which is not that big of a deal because we're still going to be able to basically bring him down into the next phase over here. So 20% HP, 71 enhanced skill, and this is going to be immediately going into phase 2. So we have quite a bit of damage remaining. So this hit over here is going to be a bit of the RNG. So you can see that my Remembrance Trailblazer as well as Mimi, they are extremely low, which is why in the very first wave, you do not want to let your Flame Reavers hit your unit that much, because the moment they get hit, if you want to deal with the RNG, I guess that's doable, right? If you want to grind RNG, let Tribute get hit instead, you know, such that your Remembrance Trailblazer doesn't die, or you could just use a Glow passive and then it doesn't really consume you that much. So I decided to go for the run this time without using the Glow passive whatsoever. But yes, Glow passive, it is going to be a huge quality of life for people that do want to do zero cycle. So at this point, the run is essentially over, right? Anaxa is going to go for the ultimate, and then he's going to cast his skill into a skill very easily. So Anaxa is just going to go ahead and cast his skill. There's one skill point and then follow up another skill for free. And then now we will have perfect amounts of skill right here to essentially get rid of the enemy, right? At this point, honestly, you can choose between either basic attacking or skilling. But because I know I'm going to get an extra turn with Mimi over here, you can see where I 60%, my true damage buff, you can see this blinking icon over here, it is still one turn remaining, right? So it's literally zero difference. So I just went for the basic attack, give us the extra turn, bring out Mimi. Mimi gives me back my Herta, and then we're gonna get 100% coverage on this true damage buff. So we're gonna go skill into an ultimate into a skill, very easily taking out the Flame Reaver here. The main concern is basically the sustain issue, as with all zero cycle runs. But if you are able to essentially get rid of them before they can do damage to your team, then it's gonna be very nice. So that is gonna be the run with Herta and Anaxa zero cycling Flame Reaver for the first half. And now I'm gonna show you guys another team comp on the second half. We definitely want to test out his performance in an environment which is not going to be having the weakness, because that's part of Anaxa's kit to implant all of the weaknesses in the target, which means that you can make your main DPS team pretty universal for both halves of Memory of Chaos, right? So for this particular run, it is also a little bit straightforward. Now, there are two options to go about it. Option number one is that you want to cut your Anaxa's ultimate between Kafka's mind control. So if you are able to do that, Kafka wouldn't mind control you for her very first move. It will be delayed to the next action, and then ideally you want to kill her before that happens, right? So if you are able to do enough damage to basically kill Kafka before she can mind control using Anaxa, then that's good. The other alternative, which is if you don't have enough damage, you essentially want to grind this RNG for Kafka to either hit, as long as it doesn't hit Herta, most of the time it's going to be doable. I've gotten a couple of rounds with Anaxa, I've gotten a couple of rounds with Mimi, but we're just going to go and see what this battle is going to be, right? So for the very first wave, as usual, don't really have too much of thinking to do. You're going to be doing the exact same thing, using your RMC's Mimi true damage on the Tribi first, exactly the same as the previous wave. And then for this part, you basically want to manage your charge a little bit more, and then just hold off to your ultimate, because you want to get 42%, 60% right before Herta goes into the wave 2. So Anaxa over here, we know that the fact he's gonna die right here, right? So this bounce actually killed both targets at the same time, because we dealt a little bit too much damage. So if you don't have enough damage, you can actually squeeze out a little bit more energy for Herta over here. But unfortunately, we dealt a little bit too much, so it is what it is. I essentially wanted to cast my ultimate over here, because in case Kafka mind controls RMC, then you can no longer cast your ultimate, which is gonna be very bad. But if you were to cast your ultimate beforehand, even if she mind controls you, it doesn't really matter as long as the Mimi gets the extra turn to Herta, right? So that's that. And you can see over here, right now we actually do get mind control by Kafka on the RMC, and then it's gonna be completely fine because we already got our ultimate off, and she basically attacked Mimi for, you know, she just punched the guy in the face. It is what it is. So we do get ourselves the 100% charge. A little bit of an action value wasted, but honestly it's completely fine. We're gonna go over here. Anaxa pops off the sublimation, gets the ultimate off onto Kafka. We have every single elemental weakness. Remember, this is not E2 Anaxa, so there's no rest down over here, right? But we are just basically gonna spam all of our skill points and just go all in. So at this point, it's extremely straightforward. You just want to go all in. Notice how I immediately cast my Herta's ultimate right here, because I know for a fact that we have around 11 action value remaining, and the final action value right here is gonna be 74. Right, so we can actually squeeze out one more additional action. As long as you keep it within this benchmark, then it's gonna be fine. If you are around the same action value as RMC over here, then she's no longer gonna get the extra turn, even if you cast your ultimate with a little bit of a wastage, right? So that is fine. We're just gonna go in all in the damage. You can see very easily taking out Kafka for basically ridiculous amounts of damage. This is going to be entire team of E0, Tribute is going to be E1. So at this point, it is basically completely free, right? So you just deal all of the damage. We're just going to basic attack. We're just going to do a basic attack. And afterwards, Anaxa is pretty much just going to kill the horse. So if you do not want to grind for this... Okay, we didn't even manage to get Anaxa to let go of his gun over here. If you don't want to grind for this RNG, you can essentially what you want to do is at this particular point over here, you want to make sure that Anaxa gets enough energy for Kafka immediately before she casts Dominate, which I'm going to be demonstrating for the second showcase in Anaxa Hypercarry. So if you were to do that, Kafka actually does not do her mind control and she's going to get delayed a little bit. The problem with this is if you do not deal enough damage, she's still going to mind control you regardless. Then it wouldn't change the outcome of the battle whatsoever. But this is going to be my run with the Herta and Anaxa for both halves of Memory of Chaos 12. Right? And now I'm going to be showcasing you guys how Hypercarry Anaxa is going to be performing. So this one is going to be Hypercarry Anaxa. The team comps will definitely change a little bit. I've mentioned to you guys before in the early access video, Anaxa's Hypercarry best result is basically going to be Sunday as well as Robin. For the final slot, if you do want to run a sustain, you definitely want to run with a Huo, or because we have energy regeneration, right? If you want to run a sustainless run in this case, then we can see my previous video, Tribly plus Robin 0 cycles in my Tribly early access guys. It's some of the similar concept, very synergistic with one another for a 0 cycle. So for this half, there's also basically not too much of an RNG. You basically want to let Anaxa go for a basic attack over here, and then you want to cast your ultimate because you are a little bit tight on skill points since both Robin and Tribly, they are very slow. So you want to conserve a little bit, and not too much, but just a little bit. So at this point, ideally, you actually let go of your Sunday ultimate, pass out all of your buffs. You notice that even though Robin didn't get hit, it doesn't really matter that much because we're still able to squeeze out enough damage even if we were to delay this first action completely, right? So you can see we don't really actually have enough energy for Robin to cast ultimate over here, which means that by the time it goes to their turn and Robin casts her ultimate right here, then these two units, Anaxa and Sunday, they will no longer get the third action. So as a result of this is to showcase you guys if you do not want to grind for the RNG. This is assuming the worst possible case, Robin does not get an ultimate. You basically just wait, right? You just wait and let all these units go so that you can still generate enough energy, especially for Sunday and Anaxa himself, right? So I basically decided that, you know what, since we're not going to be getting enough energy over here, I just want to save this ultimate completely for wave 2, right? Because we do get 100% action value advanced pushback. So I'm going to purely rely on Anaxa, Sunday, and Tribly to get rid of wave 1, and I'll basically just save Robin's ultimate all the way to wave 2 to instantly push up our entire team immediately at the start of battle. As you can see over here, the damage over here is going to be a little bit tight, so I do decide that if I'm not going to be able to kill with this, then I have to use my Tribly ultimate. But luckily for us, Anaxa actually does get a double kill without even using Tribly ultimate, as well as getting the full energy over here. So this is pretty much the best case scenario. You get full energy on Anaxa, you get full energy on Tribly, and you're almost full energy on Sunday. So at this point, instantly when you go into battle, you want to cast your Robin ultimate immediately because this is basically constitutes as a free turn, right? This is basically a free turn. So all these damage, even though he didn't summon his clone, it is completely free because you can see here, immediately after Flame Reaver goes, this is going to be 72 action value. And even if we didn't cast our Robin ultimate, you can see over here, right, when we go into the battle, even if you were to not cast your Robin ultimate and you wait for him to summon, you basically wasted one whole turn because this does constitute as essentially the bonus turn if you were to immediately cast Robin's ultimate going to wave 2. Right? So with or without Robin ultimate, this would be exactly the same. So everything over here, it is pretty much free damage, right? It's completely free damage. So just go for it all in, and then by the time he summons his clone again, just deal your normal thing. So because we do get the additional Robin turn with our all 3 units combined, we're just gonna let go all of our skills, cast our Tribute ultimate, cast our Anaxa ultimate, and cast our Sunday ultimate. Pretty much everything can just go ahead over here, right? For Sunday specifically, I think I might have saved his ultimate for him to summon his clones, so that Tribute can land a follow-up to deal with the clones a little bit more efficiently, right? Okay, never mind, I just went for it anyways. So maybe if you wanted to, you could have just saved Sunday's ultimate because it's basically one free follow-up attack for the clones. But since we do get enough here for the ultimate into another follow-up attack, yep, so I basically just decided to go all in here. But like I mentioned, you probably want to save all of this energy for his clones first. But you can see that it actually does not matter whatsoever because these are the first clones, very low on my HP, but you can essentially kill him right here. Now you have to kill Flame Reaver right here because if you don't, he's gonna hit you with another 2 of his attacks into his phase 2, which means Robin and Sunday, they are almost certainly going to die, right? So this point is basically when you have to go all in. Now if you save your ultimates for Tribly and Anaxa for the clones over here, you probably could have dealt a little bit faster of a damage, but you can see we instantly got into phase 2 with no problems whatsoever, and you know, it didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. So I still went for the ultimate immediately because Anaxa gets his ultimate so goddamn quickly, it actually doesn't matter at all. And in fact, we do get hit over here. Robin is actually gonna get hit with the global passive. Yep, Robin is actually going to get hit with the global passive, but I will also be showcasing you guys a run without the global passive triggering, as well as basically another thought process on how do you get this zero cycle, right? So we're going to do the exact same thing. At this point, we are pretty much home free because you can see Robin already generated enough energy to cast off her second ultimate. After Anaxa Sunday, Anaxa goes, we're definitely going to get enough energy, and then you can see the damage sort of just fly off here. It's very, very satisfying. So we're just pretty much going to go all in. Alright, cast off one of the follow-up. Probably should have saved the ultimate after Robin cast her ultimate. I was a little bit scared that we didn't have enough energy for Robin, but I just want to play it safe. Cast off a Robin, boom, fly everybody up. And this is the part where it's gonna be, you know, you can just enjoy this BO, right? It's very, very satisfying. Goes for the hit over here. And then it's gonna go in and boom. And then it's gonna just do the basic attack. And yeah, you have the basic attack over here because otherwise you wouldn't get enough skill points. And then Anaxa goes in, and then Sunday brings us back up. And then we get ourselves the ultimate, and then that is gonna be game. This is going to be the run where we did actually involve the global passive, right? But after this run, I'm going to be showcasing you guys the run without just in one more second after this final hit. Boom, right? So hail global passive, but now I'll showcase you guys the run without, right? The thought process is actually a little bit different because the rotations actually changed a little bit. I'm just gonna jump straight into the action over here. So for what happened over here, right, is that we actually do get enough Robin energy, right? So this is a scenario where your RNG, you actually get hit for Robin, such that after this tribute, you actually do get enough energy to essentially cast your Robin's ultimate, which means that you can get enough value over here to generate for our entire team, right? So we're gonna go in. We're going to pop this. Now, notice how we are not going to be getting the extra turn anymore because it was 33 action value away. But it actually does not matter whatsoever because we are basically definitely going to be killing them over here, right? So there's actually zero difference. We're just going to try to stall as much as possible. We're going to try to hold our ultimates as well because I know for a fact we definitely have enough damage. So this Anaxa skill is just going to do a double kill. We'll save the follow-up attack for the second wave against Flame Reaver immediately, right? Okay, never mind. It is what it is. I basically try to save my skill points, but over there, I should have used my skill so that we can save this bounce for Flame Reaver. It is a little bit of a waste of damage, but it is fine. We're just going to let him summon his clone, so this is going to be exactly the same. You always want to start with a Anaxa sublimation so that you can get the free skill or every single time you cast his skill himself, right? So we cast off a tribute ultimate. I didn't cast my tribute ultimate before Anaxa because I wanted to save this a little bit for later on. So you can see over here, boom, we actually get rid of every single one of the clones. So for the next tribute ultimate on Anaxa, you can see over here, we can basically bring him down to exactly at 0%, hopefully, unless there's a curse of 1%. Okay, unfortunately, it is a little bit off. So we are going to be tanking a little bit of a damage over here. But it's still completely fine. You can see my team is still relatively healthy. But at this point, you definitely need to grind a little bit of RNG, right? Because if you don't grind the RNG over here, your Robin or Sunday is going to die. But luckily for us, Robin actually gets hit at 949 HP. So that's what happens if you do not have enough damage, right? If you have enough damage, then this would have instantly went into wave 2. And then you would have enough mileage to basically get a Robin ultimate, essentially, right? So, boom. He jumps into phase 2, hit us with one follow-up. Robin lives with 100 HP, and then this part is gonna be exactly the same as the previous zero cycle. You will basically let go of all of your things first. You ideally want to, you know, hold off your Trivi's follow-up. But I was thinking to myself, maybe I can squeeze out a little bit more damage from the Sunday ultimate if I were to immediately cast it on Anaxa, right? So I didn't want to wait for it anymore. I cast my ultimate here immediately because I know Anaxa's ultimate cycles extremely quickly, so there's no point saving, even if it wanted to get Robin's additional damage, right? So boom over here, get 220k follow-up. Robin casts her ultimate action very advanced, and the rest of the thing is exactly the same as the previous zero cycle. Let go of all of your skills, and you can just let the guns rip, right? So I'll just let it play out by itself, and then you can just enjoy it. Yep, a boom, boom, and Sunday bring us back up, and then that is going to be the zero cycle. Cast off the ultimate into a skill, into an enhanced skill. Sorry, not enhanced skill, into a follow-up skill. And that is going to be that for the Anaxa Hypercarry zero cycles for both scenarios, right? Now, I want to showcase the second half of Memory of Chaos, which is going to be Kafka. Now, for this specific one over here, you do want to intentionally hold your Anaxa's ultimate such that Kafka does not mind control any of it. I just want to showcase you guys what the effects are like if you were to make use of Anaxa's ultimate to cut in between an enemy's action value. Actually, specifically, you don't really even have to do this yourself, because if Kafka cards or mind control on units such as Robin, then you can technically just essentially negate it, so it actually changes nothing essentially, right? So I'm just gonna showcase you guys a scenario where you can basically do this run with essentially almost 0 RNG, because the biggest RNG concern for Kafka is essentially the mind control, right? So for this very first wave, it is also pretty much exactly the same. Now we definitely need to deal a lot more damage for this one. You can no longer do the previous rotation for the Flame Reaver 0 cycle, because the mobs against Flame Reaver on the wave 1 is actually very squishy, whereas these two mobs, I'm sure you guys have also played with them before, they are very tanky, right? So you actually want to get Robin's ultimate up as soon as humanly possible. Unfortunately, it looks like we are not able to get our Robin ultimate. But just know that you definitely need a lot more damage for the very first wave. So for this one over here, I'm just gonna essentially cast my Robin ultimate immediately, right? Because the previous rotation for Flame Reaver, you can save your Robin ultimate for an extra turn when you go to wave 2. For this one, there's absolutely no way. You have to go everything right here, right now. So I'm basically saving up a little bit for my skill points because it was a little bit low. So Sunday cast our extra turn. Next up, flies in with the ultimate, and we can just do all of our skills. And then once all these happens, then we'll cast our Robin ultimate right here, right? There's no choice because the mobs here are simply way too tanky, right? So for this point, it might not be a bad thing because at this current juncture, we can also generate a little bit of energy right before we go into wave 2. So it might not be that bad, right? Generate a little bit of skill points. Sunday brings us back up almost at max energy as well. So at this point, I basically want to use my skill, kill both mobs at the same time. So this bounce will instantly cast onto Kafka. Now watch very closely. You want to cast your Anaxa out right here, because if you cast your Anaxa out, it actually cuts in between the actions of the wave, which is one of the mechanics that the out actually provides. So Kafka will not mind control anymore because she got hit with the sublimation. You can see she got pushed all the way back to 59 action value. So you have a little bit more room to just deal as much damage as humanly possible. That's 400,000 into a 380,000 Anaxa Hypercarry at E0S1. Very satisfying. Sunday gives us the ultimate. It's gonna be 40 fixed energy, so Anaxa casts its ultimate again, and then the rotation just sort of goes by itself all over, right? So at this current point, if you can deal enough damage to kill Kafka instantly at one shot, then you will have no mind control issue. But if you cannot kill Kafka fast, now you can see here she is going to be left at 11% HP. You essentially want to break her, right? You essentially want to break her over here. So you're sort of left in the option. You essentially definitely break with one Robin basic attack and one Tribi basic attack, right? If you do not break her and she mind controls your team, such as Anaxa or Sunday, it is gonna be game over. There's no way you get this 0 cycle. So I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna break Kafka over here, and Anaxa is just gonna brute force his way without any of the external buffs, right? So we intentionally did that such that Kafka definitely dies here. You could have waited for the ultimate after she gets the DOT, but because the entire team, you can see it was already so low, alright, we're essentially left with that teeny weeny little bit of health after the bounce. After this follow-up flies in, I know for a fact that this ultimate is going to kill everyone. So we didn't even need the additional Robin ultimate. We didn't even need the Sunday turn. Anaxa basically just dealt so much damage that you can essentially get rid of the enemies immediately before you need any of them. So with that, we have come to the end of the technically 5 different 0 cycle showcases. This is 29 because we started at the cycle with 29, right? So my builds involve for Hypercarry Anaxa as well as Anaxa with Herta, right? For Herta, it's exactly the same. We're going to be rocking 135 speed to maintain the 2 actions threshold. If you do not want to run 135, you can drop her down to between 118 to 124, then you can just run a Tribi dance, right? I basically went through this route because I want to just deal as much damage as possible. You can definitely do this without Tribi signature like Cone or even the E1, but you definitely need to grind a lot more, and unfortunately, this is not to showcase, I'm the best player in the world. I just want to showcase the thought process behind the 0 cycle. So this is going to be the E1S1 Tribi, 88% speed. This is pretty much going to be exactly the same. Anaxa is going to be running the 139 Hypercarry crit Anaxa, just dealing as much damage as humanly possible for both Herta as well as his own Hypercarry build, right? If you want to, you could also go for the 4P, they go into 2Ps to Shaka, and then just let him get as much speed, close to 200 speed. But unfortunately, in this server, you don't really have access to those gears unless you want to craft them by yourself manually, which I can't be bothered to do that, right? So I just ran the exact same gear as you would have for a Hypercarry Anaxa, right? So these two are going to be the builds, E0S1, E0S1. That's pretty much it. RMC, nothing too much to say. This is a very standard build, nothing too extraordinary. You can give RMC to 200 speed effective with 4-piece ego, then sure, go for it. I just use the default gears, and then the one more gear is gonna be Sunday as well as Robin. Sunday, I basically tune to the exact normal speed, 134 speed with 200 crit damage. You want to make sure that Anaxa is going before Sunday every single time, as with every single crit DPS. And then finally for Robin, this is a very classic Robin. This is a 2-piece fleetless. Nothing too much to talk about, right? This is gonna be E0 as one Robin. I did not activate the E1, and it's gonna be a E0 as one Sunday, right? So with that, we have come to the end of the Anaxa's Quadra 0 cycles. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, especially for the Herta mains. Word of the day is gonna be gun. Join Twitch, join YouTube, join Discord, join TikTok, join Twitter. All the best. We'll see you guys next time.